just wanted to get right into the video this week because I have a lot to talk about, and I know it's been a long time since the videos come out, so I wanted to really get this one down. And we're going to talk about 3 different sets from the 1950s to 1970s. This will be part 1. I have more too, I just haven't been able to put the cards all together, but I thought I'll just break it into 2 parts. I wanted to talk about some of the cards from the 50s to the 70s that aren't as common. People know about the Parkhurst cards from the 1950s, and there might be a few other ones too. And then from the 70s, you have the Gong cards. Those have actually gotten very popular over the last few years, I've noticed. And you have the early Andre the Giant cards from Japan, and you have the magazine cutout cards from 73 and 78, I guess would be still in the 70s. With a lot of interesting stuff. But right now you're looking at one of my favorite cards in my collection, and that is a Stu Hart. I'm going to call it a rookie card, and I'm actually going to kind of call it, you don't find a lot of Stu Hart cards. I believe he's got some from like more postcards or arcade card type things, and I don't like those as much. I actually like trading cards. I actually will collect the postcards and stuff because I collect everything and collect way too much probably, but this is a really interesting card because it's a Stu Hart card from the Ace Lavando set. They were produced in Cuba, and so there's not a lot online about these cards. Actually, well, the biggest thing is there's not a lot in the PSA set registry. There's just a very handful graded, I want to say like 10 or 12, and they're all graded really low. So to have, actually you can tell that they have centering issues because you can tell this Stu Hart is not centered very well, and this one has a little bit of, unfortunately the Stu Hart is not as well as some of the other ones, but it's a Stu Hart card from 1950, and I just think it's for Stu Hart, for what he meant to the business, how he came on later in my life, and how he even got involved in WWE storylines, how he ran Stampede Wrestling, the history, everything about it. It's definitely a card to have for anyone who collects old wrestling cards. And so, the Ace Lavando set's kind of cool because there's lots of different things you can go after in the set, so it's going to be impossible to master set collectors, and I'm kind of a master set collector in a lot of ways. I'm going to have some difficulty, but at the same time, as much as the difficulty is of getting the master set, I love it because, okay, let's turn this around, and there you see that's the Stu Hart. But then there are some cards that have red backs, and the red backs are rarer than the black backs. How much rarer and why they're there, I always like to think that I know everything, but I really don't. These are red backs. And then, on top of that, there was some kind of game that you could play, because this is an instant winner card. You're not going to be able to probably tell it from the winning, but the back is completely kind of, if you remember, but you should be able to know because the Parkhurst, and I'm not even going to, I didn't look it up, it's either the 54 or 55 Parkhurst, you turn them over and they had the lucky premium backs. So master collectors you kind of want regular, like Luthez, regular card, Luthez lucky premium back. And that's kind of what these are. Instead of lucky premium, well, so they pretty much are lucky premium backs, and they have a stamp. And so I think that makes them really cool. So you have like 3 different kinds right there of just to collect. And so it's like, so how do you collect these? And I believe there's some on the PSA registry. There was a Mae Young, which would have been a really interesting card to get. And I have seen a Johnny Valentine too. I'm going to assume that was from the PSA set registry as well. I saw actually really neat cards. So some neat cards to have. So this is just what I have. I got some ones. I seriously should send these in. Probably if I ever do a PSA submission, these will go into that. They're really cool cards, and you can't go wrong with them because they remind me of Bowman cards, like from baseball, 1950. That would make a lot of sense. Black and white, but yeah, at the same time from Cuba, and obviously way rarer than Bowman. I mean, this Stu Hart, I never plan on putting it on the market, but but just the curiosity of what it would go for, like in an open auction. I guess, I mean, I could see it going for, like 100, and I could see two people who have a connection. I don't know if the Bret Hart collectors would go after it, but I could see it going for closer to 1,000. And yeah, I might be crazy, but like I said, I have no desire to sell it at this point. So I guess we won't find out unless one actually hits the open market. So and then also, what would happen if you get a Stu Hart premium back? And is Stu Hart the best card in the set to get? You never know. I mean, some people might think, oh, well, Johnny Valentine cards are better. Some people might think Mae Young cards are better. And so I'm sticking with the Stu Hart is because I think that is such a neat card. And there's women in the set too. Actually, I guess we know that with Mae Young. There's, I want to say this is a Valentine, like Violet Valentine, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, this is a Lucky Premium back as well, so we might not know who that is. And so, yeah, that's the 1950 Ace Lavando set from Cuba. And Stu Hart's, if someone wants to tell me this isn't a Stu Hart rookie, that's fine, but then you need to find another Stu Hart card to put out there, because this one is kind of the only one that I really know of right now that would qualify as a rookie card. So it's kind of cool. So, yeah, and interesting to think of what it would go for. Part 2 of the video is going to include a set that people are very familiar with, and kind of one that's considered a holy grail of collecting, the Rax Roast Beef set. And to quote one of my favorites, Roddy Piper, I was collecting Rax Roast Beef before collecting Rax Roast Beef was cool. I have a few stories behind attaining some of these, but I wanted to give a couple people credit. First of all, I wanted to talk about the Midnight Express, because people always are like, it seems like the people that get talked about the most in this set are the David Schultz and the Haku Prince Tonga. And the thing that really attracted me to this set at first was the Midnight Express. Both Bobby Eaton, the original Midnight, actually, well, not the original Midnight Express. I'll call them the Midnight Express that I grew up on. Dennis Condrey and Bobby Eaton. I don't know why I didn't put them together, and I said, so yes. They don't have a lot of cards, especially Dennis Condrey. Bobby Eaton would appear in the Wonderama set, and they would both appear. No, it was already Stan Lane in the Wonderama set. So Bobby Eaton would have there. Yeah, so Dennis Condrey. But this is, and no offense to Stan Lane, I've met Stan Lane a few times now, and every time I've enjoyed talking. He's very personable. I love talking wrestling with him. Always been just a class guy. But to me, Stan Lane is from the Fabulous Ones. I got a picture with Stan Lane and Steve Curran together. That was what I wanted, the picture from the Fabulous Ones. And this is the Midnight Express. Dennis Condrey and Bobby Eaton. These are the ones that feuded with the Rock and Roll Express. These are the ones that were on the scaffold in 1986 against the Road Warriors. And so to get these a long time ago, and that was the crazy part. Well, I've bought lots of these, and like I said, kind of before some of the big collectors got into them, they were always just kind of a mystery, and I was, I guess, ahead of at least enough knowing what I was. I'll admit, I really didn't know what I was doing. But the very first time I remember, I saw them on an eBay auction and had no clue. Like, okay, no one had ever heard. I don't think anyone had ever heard about them or talked about them before. And I was leaving for, I don't even remember, and this was obviously, this would have been in the aughts, like the 2000, I'm going to guess around 2005, but I could be off a little bit. And so I was collecting wrestling cards, a lot easier then. I mean, you didn't have even people, the All-Stars were a lot easier to get, the 85s were a lot easier to get, and I'll share some of those stories some other day. But so you had the this auction ending, and at the same day you had the biggest ice cream card, a WWE ice cream card auction. This actually, they wouldn't have even been, I'm not even sure they would have been done yet. I guess it could have been like 2007. And then, but I think it was even earlier than that. So, but they still had a ton of ice cream cards, and those were hard to find. And so that auction was ending the same day. And unfortunately, I had something very important. I can't even tell you. I'm going to guess maybe a wedding to go to or something. So something I couldn't get out. Something I wasn't going to be able to stay home and bid. And two big auctions were ending. And so it's like, okay, well, I'm going to have to put in bids before I leave. Because it was something that I couldn't even, like, sometimes I would, back then, before I was all hooked up cellular-wise and stuff, you would stop, and you could stop at a McDonald's and with a laptop, or you could stop at a library and put in a bid. Like, you could kind of plan your trips around it. But there's no way I could even do that. So I don't remember what the situation was. But I'm like, I'm going to put in 2 bids. And at the ice cream, I want to say there were about 140 ice cream cards, if I remember correctly. And, like, I'd never seen that many before. I mean, right now, I have more than that now by far, I guess. But at that point, that probably would have, like, tripled my collection. And really got, I always wanted to get into the ice cream cards and just couldn't. And so I put in a humongous bid. I'm like, I'm going to win these. And I put in a I put in a bid that was just like, I'm going to win these. I don't care. I'm probably overpaying for these, but this is going to be so nice to have a foundation for, I mean, there would have been like the 93s and 94, some of those rarer sets too, as well as some of the early sets. I'm like, this is going to be I would have a start to like every ice cream card set. I think there might have even been a couple completed sets in there. And I just put in some huge number. I'm like, I'm going to win these. And I'm like, oh yeah, I need to bid on these Rax Roast beef cards too that I know nothing about. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to win these, but I have to put in a bid because they're wrestling cards that I've never seen before, and I think they're legit, so let's do it. And the nice thing is I'm pretty sure they showed the back, and I knew who Scott Teal was even at that point, so it made sense. And so put in the bid. I'm like, I'm not going to win these, but I put in, I'm like, hey, at least they're not going to go for really cheap. That's really what I was thinking. Lo and behold, I get home that night or at the hotel where I don't remember even where I was. And it was like, wow, I lost the ice cream card bid. Wow, I won the Rax Roast beef card bid. And looking back at it, I guess that turned out pretty well for what things, and not that the ice cream cards have gone down. They've probably gone up in value too as well, but it was nice to get the start of the roast beef cards. It wasn't a complete set. It actually took me 3 separate purchases to finally get the complete set of Rax Roast beef, and then just kind of collect the extras. And so that's what I have for extras right now. But like I said, Midnight Express, these are the 2 cards that I would like. Obviously, I'm never gonna sell the set, but it's like if I had 2 cards, if I had 2 cards that I wanted from the set, it would be these 2 cards. And then George Goulas, I have to tell just a story about him. If you've read the King's book, and he was the son of the promoter Nick Goulas and Memphis, and this is, Nick wanted to put him as his top guy, and according to the King, he pretty much wasn't a great wrestler, and it sounded like people didn't like him either. And so, but I mean, and that's not unheard of. Bret Hart and Stu Hart, Vern Gagne and Greg Gagne, yeah, the Von Erichs. I mean, yeah, it's not that Eddie Graham and Jerry Graham. I feel like no, I'm getting that wrong. Mike Graham, and that would be, I'm just gonna show how little I know. I'm actually pretty sure it was Eddie Graham. So I'm pretty sure it's Eddie Graham and Mike Graham. I might be wrong on that, and like I said, I'm not gonna look that up because it really has nothing to do with cards. But this is the George Goulas card. And I just think it's a cool card to have in a set because he obviously isn't in any other sets. And I would say if it wasn't for him, that the King would have never started his own promotion. And look what that's done for wrestling. Look what that's done for Memphis wrestling. Look what that's done for the King. And having the King as such an amazing wrestler. We had the whole Andy Kaufman, Jerry Lawler feud with Letterman and everything else like that. So, no ill will against George Goulet. I didn't ever, I mean, this was a little before my time, and I wouldn't have. And sadly, for as much wrestling as because I got a lot of like Mid-South and AWA, and then I got Crockett and WWE, of course, or WWF at the time. So I never got Memphis wrestling until, so the only thing I know about Memphis wrestling is stuff that as an adult I've been able to go back and watch. And so that's, so really wasn't anything at the time. But the George Goulet, it's kind of cool to have a George Goulet card and just to have it in the collection. And because that's like, it's kind of like a one-of-a-kind card. I love cards. It's almost like a one-of-a-kind card that he doesn't really have any other cards. And so this way we can have them. If you watch the beginning of the video, you know about the Stu Hart and kind of the same situation. So famous, I love, they actually, one of the, I want to say it's GCW, just kind of, they have the Pabst ribbon monitor as well. And if you really look, you have, they probably are considered both. I know that the roast beef had the coupon. You didn't get any free beer, unfortunately, for people that wanted that. And but at the same time, it probably should be considered both the Pabst Blue Ribbon and Rex Roast Beef set, but it'll always be known as the Rex Roast Beef. The Rex Roast Beef is kind of cool too. We had one close to my grandparents' house, and so that was kind of cool too. I remember going there a couple times, and so that kind of means, if you know, it's kind of the same thing with the Carnation video that I did a little while ago and talked about the Carnation stuff. So really cool set, and I'm, like I said, it was, sadly, it's right now, a lot of people, actually, sadly, is people are, as soon as these things, if you see these things, and it'd be cool to see some true auctions on these things just to see what they go for. If you find them, people are going to jump on them, and people are going to overpay, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but this is kind of the kind of cards that you have enough people that I'm sure are going to jump on them, and so they're going to go for more than they're actually worth. But then, in essence, they probably are worth that much if people are willing to pay that much. So I think you know what I mean. Like, these are cards that people are going to spend because they want to have in their collection. These are collection changers. And so right now I'm content with what I have, and I mean, obviously if I can have an opportunity to pick some up reasonably, I would jump on them, but I'm pretty content with what I have. But it always makes me laugh to think that I bid not knowing what they were, and definitely did not think I was going to win it, but no one seemed to want to jump over me at that point. And so it would also probably do the same thing, or maybe someone else was chasing those ice cream cards too and spent their budget on that. So someday I'll have to do a video on the ice cream cards too, because now that I have most of, I do not have the complete run of ice cream cards, but I have probably over 90% of them, and that'd be kind of a cool video to do as well. Concluding today, we're going to talk about something I don't know that much about, and am not as excited about as other things, because while they're wrestling cards from the 1950s, they really aren't individual cards. It's a game. But kind of thinking of Raw Deal and the WCW Nitro game, and then on top of that, other games, the Von Erich cards from 1985 have even become collectible. This is kind of interesting. Everything about it appears to be licensed. These are Wrestle Royale cards. It really was just a basic kind of a rummy game. You had your action cards, you had your defensive cards, and you had the foul cards, which are kind of cool. You have eye gouging, biting, there are a few more there. They came, it seems like all the, I have one, actually, this is an open pack. This is an unopened sealed pack, which is kind of cool, and I'm just going to kind of keep it like that. And yeah, the backs are blank, so there's not a lot on them, but, and by sight, I did not recognize any of the wrestlers, and I would have recognized some of the more famous ones, like Luthez, Vern Gagne, Gorgeous George, anyone like that. And so it's kind of an interesting little thing. And they just seem to be, They seem to be from the 50s, and like, yes, I'll just kind of show it again. And I've never seen them except for the one time that I've been able to get them, and this was probably about 20 years ago again, so kind of an interesting addition to 1950s wrestling cards, but like I said, definitely not a collection changer. But anytime you can add kind of some interesting stuff. I like this. I like the size of them. Once again, I think I said earlier in this video that I'm not like the bigger, like the postcards and stuff aren't as exciting to me, because these actually would fit in like 9 pocket pages, even though they feel more like playing cards. So it's kind of like, I mean, if you think about the playing cards from, actually there's so many playing cards out, but the ones I'm thinking of are like from the WWF Superstars 1988, 1989, and those are kind of neat. I think those are neater than like postcards because they're small, but actually at the same time, like I would much rather have I mean, it's hard to say because the playing cards obviously are a little rarer, but I would much rather have regular cards than playing cards in most situations, and except for the rarity. But then at the same time, you go down to like the Quaker cards, which are square and definitely not the size of a normal trading card. I really like the Quaker cards. So I think that it is kind of, and I know the Quaker cards are very popular too. So it's kind of like, you do kind of just follow what's in and what's out. So it's kind of a neat set. So like I said, this is part 1 of the video. I have some more 50s stuff that I want to talk about. Actually, 50s through 70s stuff that I want to talk about. One of the things I couldn't find everything I needed to today, and I had a couple other things in too, so we'll just kind of throw those in for the next video. It's kind of neat because, yeah, my collection is just all over the place right now. I went to a card show last weekend, a really big one. It was really nice, but they didn't have a ton of wrestling. I picked up some basic, like some prisms and selects that I needed just randomly. They're very, very reasonably priced for all the wrestling stuff that I did find. I ended up with way more. Actually, it's amazing. And I guess if you collect cards, and actually you probably, if you're saved for this part of the video, you probably do. I found a quarter, actually not a quarter, but it was like a quarter table that had about 30 monster boxes or 5,000 count boxes of quarter cards from all different sports. And I ended up spending 2.5 hours going through all of them, and I found so many fun things in them that it was, but no wrestling. It was all football, baseball, a little basketball, a little hockey, and I think even a couple other random things I just thought were kind of cool. But yeah, unfortunately, no wrestling, and so the little bit of wrestling I found was kind of neat. But I'll keep going to more card shops and shows too. Hopefully, find some more stuff, and put some more videos out then as well. Otherwise, it's yeah, WrestleMania is just around the corner. I'll be doing WrestleMania videos for my actual wrestling followers of this channel, but I'll also be updating what's selling at WrestleCon for cards. Last year there was a lot of cards that were available for WrestleCon. See what people are getting signed and everything else like that. Talk to some of the wrestlers, and I have a lot of friends who are wrestlers who will be there, so I'm going to kind of talk to them about signing cards and stuff like that. I talked to actually Prince Ming or Haku or Prince Tonga, whatever you want to call him, and showed him the WCW cards, and he thinks that he signed his. And I also talked to Hugh Morris, and Hugh Morris says, yeah, those that definitely seem like something he signed. So I know there's some controversy there, so it's always fun just to, every time I run into someone from WCW that I know, or at least have been talking to, I'll try to get some updated information there. I know some other people are way more into that set than I am, so maybe I'll let them kind of take the reins on that too. But otherwise, thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll have another wrestling card video soon.